The opening words are by the Reverend Angela Herrera. Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you, and your joy, and your passion. Bring your loving, and your courage, and your conviction. Bring your need for healing, and your power to heal. There's work to do, and you have all that you need to do it right here in this room. Our opening hymn is number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Please rise in body or spirit if you are able.
So welcome to First Parish in Bedford, a Unitarian Universalist congregation where we come together every week as a people with diverse beliefs and a shared commitment to bring more peace, more love, more justice, and more joy into the world. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whether you worship one God, many gods, or no God, you are welcome here. I want to say a special welcome to all of our visitors this morning. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Memorial Day weekend. Thank you to our visitors joining us on Zoom. Here in the sanctuary, you are invited to fill out a blue connection card, which you'll find along the backs of the pews. You can give that to one of the ushers when we take the offering, or you can leave it at the membership table out by the common room, and we will add you to our mailing list. In Zoom, we'll put a link in the chat. You can fill out a virtual connection card. Parents and caregivers of little ones, there's a nursery available downstairs for your convenience, but we are always super happy to have little ones here in the sanctuary with us as well. After the service, everyone is welcome to join us for coffee and tea and fellowship in the common room. And some announcements today. Speaking of after the service today, we're having a special presentation at 11:30 in the Bacon Room, which you'll find on the second floor level, called First Parish 101. So if you are newer to First Parish, or you just find yourself wondering, how do things work around here? You're welcome to join us and learn more about how things do work around here. Sharon McDonald is going to share about the history of First Parish. We're going to play First Parish themed Jeopardy! Reverend Annie and I and members of the membership team will be there to answer questions. Bagels will be provided. So it's going to be a great time. Come join us. Sunday, June 8th, is the last Sunday service of the regular church year before we go on hiatus for the summer. Check the calendar and the Friday emails for all the fun events that will still be happening over the summer, like Friday potlucks and other gatherings. This summer, we are once again having Summer Services Consortium, where 5 local UU congregations will take turns offering Sunday services from June 29th to August 31st. These are Bedford, Waltham, Lincoln, Concord, and Lexington. So you can still go to church on Sunday morning all summer long. Yay! And this is a great chance to experience other congregations and to meet fellow UUs in the area. Bedford is hosting June 29th, so we get to kick the whole thing off, and then again in August 10th. More details will go out as they are available. Also, June 8th, we are hosting a table at Bedford Pride on the Common from 2 to 4 p.m. This is an amazingly fun time. If you have not experienced this, we do need volunteers, so please email me if you want to help with this event. Also, June 8th, after the service, we're having our second annual Flower Express, courtesy of the lay pastoral care team. And this is where we bundle up bouquets of flowers and we deliver them to our members who don't get out so much. And it's basically just a nice excuse to visit with someone and bring them some flowers and chat. A sign-up genius will go out soon, so you can sign up to deliver flowers to a fellow first parishioner. Courtesy of the lay pastoral care team, I want to note also today that the card table will be out during coffee hour, so you can stop by and sign a card of congratulations or care that will go out to a fellow congregant. And finally, last note again about June 8th, our annual meeting will be at 4 p.m. this year, here in the sanctuary and on Zoom. This is the meeting where we pass the budget, elect officers, and hear reports from the board and the ministry team, so please plan to attend and be a part of democracy in action. That is it for an announcements, so if you will please rise in body or spirit, we'll recite together our unison affirmation that we say every Sunday. The words are in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en espíritu de amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. Please be seated. Our story for all ages today is called The Little Mouse Who Thought She Was Not Brave, but Really She Was Very Brave. Once upon a time, there was a little mouse who lived in a barn who thought that she was not very brave. After all, she was afraid of so many things. She was afraid of the farmer's cat stalking in the grass. She was afraid of the sharp-eyed hawk soaring overhead. Once, she was even frightened by her own shadow. "What is that?" she squeaked before realizing what it was. "I wish I were brave like you, Mama," she said to her mother one day. "I am not brave at all." "Well," said her mother, "lots of people think they are brave who are not, and some people think they are not, but they are. You will know when it is time to be brave what it is that you really are." Then she added, "Your father and I believe in you." Well, one day she and her sister were out playing in a field when suddenly there was a shadow overhead, and it was the hungry hawk looking for his lunch. With a squeak of fright, the little mouse ran and jumped inside the hollow of an old log where she would be safe, hidden from the hawk's view. "Thank goodness I'm safe," she thought. But then she realized that her sister was not with her. From inside the log, she could see her sister smelling clover in the field and digging for seeds, totally unaware that the hawk was circling overhead. She tried to call for her sister, but she was so frightened, only the tiniest squeak came out. "Sis." Her sister couldn't hear her. "Surely Mama and Papa will come get us," she thought. But she knew they were actually back in the barn far away, and meanwhile the hawk made another circle overhead, and there was no time to wait. The little mouse even closed her eyes. "Go away, hawk," she thought. "Go away, go away, go away. Please go away. Someone please take this hawk away." But when she opened her eyes, the shadow of the hawk was still moving across the ground, drawing closer to her sister. "There's no one here but me," thought the little mouse. Suddenly, the image of her mother came into her mind's eye. "Mama, make me strong like you," said the little mouse, and stealing up every ounce of courage she had, she raced out of the log, back out under the gaze of the cruel hawk, and she ran to her sister. "Hawk," she shouted, "come on, come on, come on, come on." Her sister looked up startled, and together they raced back into the safety of the log, just in the nick of time. The hawk shrieked overhead, his lunch plans ruined. When they told the story to their parents later, her mom and dad said, "We're so proud of you. That was very brave." The little mouse said, "I didn't feel brave. I was so scared." "Well, bravery doesn't mean you're not afraid," her mother explained. "It means doing the right thing anyway, just as your father and I believed that you would." "I guess so," said the little mouse. "I'm glad I believed in me too." And that is the story of the little mouse who thought she was not brave, but actually she was very brave. And now we're going to sing the children out to their classes with Jason Shelton's Children's Blessing. The words are in your order of service.
Good morning. I'm Liz Connors, a member of the lay pastoral care team, and this is the time in our service when we invite anyone with a joy or concern to share at the candle stand. This last candle is for the joys and concerns that we are holding in our hearts. And I'll be at the candle stand at the end of the service if someone wants to light a candle in private.
This is a prayer for Memorial Day by Reverend Wayne Arneson. So won't you please join me in an attitude of prayer or reflection. Spirit of life, we gather this Memorial Day weekend surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. First among them are all those we remember this day who have lost their lives in war. Members of the armed forces, civilians in service, innocent bystanders, children. Those who share our homeland are remembered today in this country, but the ritual is repeated on other days in other countries all over the world. For those among us who have loved those lost as family members or as friends as they served our country, this day is a reminder that mourning and honoring never ends. For their service and their sacrifice, we pause in silence of memory and respect. We cannot forget the other witnesses this day, all those who currently serve. We pray for their safe return. We give thanks for all those who have returned from service, who know war's aftermath and the toll that it can take on the human heart. Though this Memorial Day is dedicated to those lost in war, all the beloveds we have lost are also present this day. So we hold their names and their faces in our mind's eye. We recall the gifts they gave to us through the strength of their living, the depth of their love, the courage of their dying, and the fullness of their living. In the holy quiet of this hour, surrounded by all these witnesses who live with us in blessed memory, we return with them once again to the silence in tribute to all they have meant to us. So please join me now in another moment of silence. Amen. Now, this isn't in your order of service, but we're going to sing a hymn now to close out this time of prayer. It is number 159 in your gray hymnal. This is my song. Number 159. Please rise in body or spirit.
Whenever I hear stories about Unitarian Universalists who have risked their lives or put their bodies on the line for social justice, of course, I always feel proud and inspired, but I'm also a little intimidated. If that's the standard, I'm afraid I won't be able to live up to it. Maybe that kind of courage just isn't in me. I think that's a common anxiety. And maybe that's why the most famous speech about courage is about being afraid you don't have it. Of course, I'm talking about the Cowardly Lion speech in The Wizard of Oz. We're going to do that speech now as a responsive reading. Your part is simple. When I point to the congregation, I want you all to say together the word courage. So let's try it. 1, 2, 3. Courage. Wow, that was good. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage. What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dusk? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What makes the Sphinx the seventh wonder? Courage. What makes the dawn come up like thunder? What makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in the apricot? What have they got that I ain't got? Courage. Oh, you can say that again. But as the story goes on, it turns out that the lion, like the little mouse, actually does have courage. And maybe the reason he didn't see it in himself is that he was looking for the wrong thing. We sometimes think of courage as a kind of brazen fearlessness, caring nothing for risk, laughing at danger. But if you read the accounts of people who have actually done heroic things, that kind of feeling is usually not what they report. Instead, they just met the moment they were in, saw something that needed doing, and thought, here we go. Well, we're in a moment now. If you look around, I think you'll see a lot of things that need doing. Here we go.
The Free Church survives, is sustained, flourishes even by the support of its members freely given. Every Sunday at First Parish, we take an offering so that the good works of this community can continue on for generations to come. The offering will now be taken. Please give generously as you are able. The title of my sermon today is From the Sharps to Charlottesville, We're going to tell the story of Martha and Waitstill Sharp, two Unitarians who were inspired by the values of their religion to risk their lives helping people overseas escape from Nazi-occupied Europe, both right before and then during World War II. So sources for today's sermon include the Holocaust website facinghistory.org, the Ken Burns documentary Defying the Nazis, the Sharps War, which you can stream online, and its associated website, Waitstill Sharp's autobiography, The Liberation of the Human Spirit, Martha Sharp's autobiography, Church Mouse in the White House, and a little help from the UU World magazine. How many times can you cheat death and live to tell about it? In August of 1939, Martha Sharp had been serving as a secret agent in Nazi-occupied Prague for 7 months. Ostensibly a Unitarian relief worker who was working with her husband, the Unitarian minister Waitstill Sharp, Martha's true mission was a rescue operation. She and her husband had come to Prague in February of 1939, 1 month ahead of the German invasion of Czechoslovakia, to get Czech dissidents out of the country before they could be targeted by the agents of Hitler's Reich. In the course of doing this work, she had been stalked by agents of the German Gestapo. She had narrowly avoided discovery and capture many times while ferreting political refugees out of the country by train, disguised as ordinary workers. Her office in Prague, where she worked undercover, had been ransacked multiple times by German agents looking for evidence of her illegal liberation work. Martha had risked and escaped arrest for her illegal activities time and time again. But then in August of 1939, the word came to her from her contacts in the Prague underground that her time was up. Papers had been signed by the police for the Sharps' arrest. In Nazi-occupied Prague, arrest meant imprisonment at best, possibly torture and death. It was time to go. So let's back up just a bit. In the late 1930s, an estimated 250,000 refugees had fled the expanding German Reich for the relative safety of Prague. These refugees included Jews, communists, freethinkers of every stripe, and outspoken critics of the Nazis. It also included a large community of Unitarians at the Unitarian Church of Prague, which had been founded just a few decades ago by the Reverend Norbert Čapek. As Hitler turned his ambitions from Austria to Czechoslovakia, the situation for these refugees was deeply uncertain. Now, during this time period, while this was going on, Martha and Waitstill Sharp were a young married couple serving a Unitarian church in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Waitstill was a minister. Martha was a graduate of Brown University and one-time social worker. And in those days, being a minister's wife was an occupation unto itself. So once she became a minister's wife, that was her new gig. One day in late 1938, Reverend Sharp received a call from Everett Baker, who worked for the American Unitarian Association, the predecessor of the UUA. Baker asked if he could meet with the couple. So they met, and Baker explained to the Sharps the situation in Europe, with which the Sharps were very familiar. Reverend Sharp had been preaching against the evils of Nazism for years, and he was not alone in this. Prominent Unitarian ministers, like James Luther Adams, had been sounding the alarm about the Nazis since 1936 or before. And now Baker proposed to the Sharps a mission of the utmost importance, but not without danger. They would travel to Prague to do relief work directly on the scene. As aid workers, they could provide desperately needed food and medical supplies. They could also help resettle refugees out of Europe. Now, the whole operation was to be financed with donations from American Unitarians, although Waitstill recalls in his autobiography that there actually was no money. It was just hoped that some would sort of materialize. The Sharps themselves were to be paid no salary whatsoever. So, would the Sharps undertake this mission? Wade still recalled asking how many couples had Everett Baker already posed this question to. 17 was the reply. Am I to understand, asked Reverend Sharp, that all 17 have refused? Yes, said Baker. The couple had 2 young children. Wade still wanted to go. Martha recalled Wade Still's deep sense of duty ingrained in him by his mother. They both felt the call of their Unitarian values. Martha was torn but ultimately agreed to go, entrusting the children to a family friend. So the Sharps arrived in Prague in February 1939. Just a few weeks later, the West betrayed Czechoslovakia and agreed to a German occupation of the territory as part of the doctrine of appeasement. Wade still recalled that overnight, every trace of Czech democracy vanished. When German troops poured across the border to secure control, they brought with them an enemies list. People the Nazis wanted arrested, imprisoned, or killed. So the situation for the refugees in Prague immediately became deadly. Martha and Wade still thus began a 6-month rescue operation. Disguised as relief workers, they forged visas, passports, and identity papers. They smuggled intellectuals and dissidents by train across the border, disguised as gardeners and laborers. Sometimes they had no idea who they were really rescuing. The night that Martha narrowly escaped arrest by the Gestapo, she was on her way to a clandestine meeting with a man who she only knew as Mr. X. Now, the Sharps had been trained in London on how to recognize when they were being tailed and how to lose a follower. So Martha literally hid in the shadows until the Gestapo lost her trail. She then met with Mr. X at his apartment and successfully guided him across the city to a place of safety at the London consulate, telling any German soldiers who stopped them that the man was her husband. To this day, no one knows who Mr. X was, but he made it to safety. During this same period, Wade Still Sharp had set up a money laundering operation by which Czech refugees could deposit their currency with him, and he would arrange for British currency to be waiting for them in their name at London and other banks around Europe. Everything was done off book, by promise and memory. Wade still recalled in his biography that when they finally settled the accounts in London, from memory, there was a discrepancy of 39 cents. Since the Nazis had forbidden the exchange of local currency, this was all quite illegal. When word came of their imminent arrest on that August day, Wade still was in Switzerland for a youth conference. Martha fled for Paris, and she later learned that the Gestapo arrived at her hotel room the next morning to arrest her. From Paris, the Sharps boarded a steamliner for New York, the Queen Mary, and while they were en route, on the water, Germany invaded Poland and World War II began, which meant that their ship now immediately became a target for German submarines, and the remainder of the voyage was made with lights out, windows blackened, and cigarette smoking forbidden on deck. Fortunately, they made it home safely. When they returned, Martha remembered we were back in another world. Love, children's arms, plentiful food, and the only thing that concerned Americans that September seemed to be which team would win the World Series. It would be 2 more years before America would enter the war. But the Sharps did not stay in this place of safety for long. The Unitarians were forming something called the Unitarian Service Committee to respond to the Nazi menace. So in 1940, they asked the Sharps again to return to Europe, this time to Nazi-occupied France, with the same mission: get people out. The Sharps again agreed to go, setting up operations in supposedly neutral Marseille. They again agonized over leaving their children. But if they had considerations for their own personal safety, their family friends say these were never recorded. But we can imagine that, of course, they did. In France, the Wadestills took on different tasks. They worked with the International Red Cross and with the British. Martha focused on purchasing and distributing a train car's worth of Nestle's powdered milk to starving babies in the south of France. She also rescued 27 children by ocean liner, settling them in homes across America. And if you watch Ken Burns' documentary, you can hear the stories of those children that she saved. Waitstill resettled in Lisbon and worked on refugee requests flooding out of Unitarian headquarters in Boston. In one dramatic episode, he led a group of men by train across Vichy, France to the border, including several prominent Jewish intellectuals like the novelist Leon Feuchtwanger. Along the way, an anonymous agent knocked on his door and warned him that Vichy agents would board at the next stop and they had to get off the train like right now. He had no idea who this person was. Was it a trap? Waitstill made the decision to trust that man and his message, and that decision saved them all from capture. They ultimately escaped by foot over the mountains into Spain, following land routes used by smugglers. It was this rescue work in Lisbon that gave us the symbol of the flaming chalice, ultimately. The kind of cloak and dagger work that the Sharps and others were engaged in requires a very high degree of trust. Papers and official-looking documents are important. So the Unitarian Service Committee commissioned an artist named Hans Deutsch to create a logo for them that they could stamp on letterhead that could serve as travel papers. And Deutsch created the symbol of the flaming chalice for this logo. The commissioner of the Unitarian Service Committee approved, saying, "The holy oil burning in it is a symbol of helpfulness and sacrifice." And today, of course, it is the most commonly shared and recognizable symbol of Unitarian Universalism. So, if you take away only one thing from this sermon, please remember this: the central symbol of our faith, the chalice we light every Sunday, is about helpfulness and sacrifice, yes, but what it's also about is fighting fascism. That's where it comes from. In his autobiography, Waitstill recalls that the most haunting image he saw from his experience working with refugees was an office in Geneva that he visited in 1939. In the office were filing cabinets that were stuffed to the brim with pre-war visa requests that were being made to the West by dissidents, artists, intellectuals, community leaders, people desperate to get out of what they knew would soon become Nazi-occupied territory. How many requests were in those filing cabinets? Waitstill inquired. 4,700 was the answer. How many of these people were granted visas? 250 was the answer. Waitstill would later write, "Fully as awful as the tragedy from which they were fleeing was the tragedy of inflexible immigration bars and requirements, which doomed all but a tiny fraction of those people to the death of the body and the soul in their own convulsed nations." Hostility to refugees and immigrants is not new in America. It is this thing we return to again and again. Well, the Sharps came back to America in late 1940, back home to their children and the congregation they served. After the war, they returned to Czechoslovakia for a year in 1946 to bring aid and relief to the post-war country. Martha devoted her life to politics and humanitarian work. Waitstill remained in the ministry, serving multiple UU congregations. The experience during the war had taken a toll on their marriage. They divorced in 1954, and each later remarried. And for the rest of their lives, they rarely spoke of their work during the war. Waitstill died in 1983. Martha died in 1999. In 2005, the Sharps were awarded the designation Righteous Among the Nations by Yad Vashem, recognizing those non-Jews who made extraordinary efforts to help Jews during the war. There are only 5 Americans who hold this distinction, and the Sharps are 2 of them. They were 2 ordinary people who accepted the call of their faith to enter a much larger role in a much larger world than they ever imagined for themselves. With decent people under attack by the forces of intolerance and racism and anti-Semitism and oppression, They responded from their deep sense of commitment to their Unitarian values of freedom and tolerance and goodwill. But Waite still would say simply, it was time for the work. And in the 85 years since the Sharps returned home in 1940, Unitarians and later Unitarian Universalists have answered this call time and again in service of those values, and sometimes at no less risk. When Dr. King asked clergy to come to Selma in 1965, Unitarians went in great number. And there at Selma, the Unitarian minister James Reeb and Unitarian civil rights activists Viola Liuzzo were killed by white supremacists. In 2017, it was time for the work again, when fascists began gathering in Charlottesville for an event called Unite the Right. And the intention underlining this event was broadcast dramatically when a group of young men brandishing tiki torches marched across the University of Virginia campus chanting, "Jews will not replace us." Now, if you don't know, this is both an anti-Semitic and an anti-immigrant chant. It refers to a conspiracy theory called the Great Replacement, which is spread by white supremacists, saying that Jews are conspiring to destroy white America by bringing in non-white immigrants. The torch-bearing members surrounded a church that night, holding the people inside captive. They marched on a synagogue, shouting Nazi slogans. They assaulted black students. The police were nowhere. So the call went out for clergy to come to Charlottesville to witness against hate, and Unitarian Universalists had answered, including the president of the UUA, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, then president. In the chaotic events of the next day, the assembled interfaith clergy confronted armed and organized fascists on the ground. And Susan Frederick Gray describes it this way. This is from a 2018 sermon she delivered at General Assembly. The next morning, she says, the police again stood back, far from the crowds. We faith leaders stood face to face with well-armed white men dressed in surplus military gear, carrying long guns, assault rifles, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. A right-wing volunteer militia supposedly policing the event. And then when dozens and dozens of white supremacists came marching down the street, chanting and yelling with shields and helmets and bats and sticks, coming right at the faith leaders gathered by the park, the police moved back. Violence only started, she says, when anti-fascist groups stepped forward to protect the faith leaders when they saw that the police were doing nothing and would do nothing. She says it was absolutely terrifying to see the level of armed white nationalist violence, and it was terrifying to see it go completely unchecked by the police. I keep a framed photo in my office of those clergy marching out together that day, arms linked. Tragically, in the chaos of that day, a number of UUs were injured, and a woman named Heather Heyer was killed when a white supremacist deliberately drove his car into a crowd of protesters. Susan Frederick Gray wrote, when we stepped onto the streets in Charlottesville as faith leaders, we knew our safety could not be guaranteed or expected. Our faith that love is stronger than hate gave us strength, she says, but something else gave us strength, and that was the fact that we were not alone. She says, this is no time to try to go it alone. We need to be building the strength of our communities, even as we are resisting in the larger world, end quote. We are all called to the work of our liberal religious tradition, our Unitarian Universalist tradition in different ways, big and small. And much of that call is exactly the work of building up our communities. And it is carried out in acts of friendship and support, camaraderie, curiosity, mutual encouragement and care, right? It can be as simple and joyful as singing on Sunday morning. And then sometimes that work may stretch us in unexpected ways. The challenges that confront us in our country in this moment are significant. I don't need to enumerate them for you. Our tradition calls us to keep striving for the cause of human liberation in the face of all of this, to keep witnessing to the power of love, to keep organizing to protect those who need protection, and to keep resisting fascism, because that's what we do. And when we receive that call, may we say, as simply and plainly and as courageously as the Sharps and so many who came after, that it is time for the work. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn today is number 121, We'll Build a Land. We'll sing verses 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 4. Please rise in body or spirit. Our closing words are by Martha Sharp. One can only manage a miracle every so often, but a series of miracles can happen when many people become concerned and are willing to act at the right time. Here are to all the miracles we do manage. Go in peace.